Hi, welcome to Coffee with Carmelo. My name is Siobhan Gonzalez. I am the business developer here at United Professional Engineering, and I have our president and owner, Carmelo Giglio. Carmelo, today we want to know, please tell us, what is the definition of substantial structural deterioration?
That's correct. Well, I'm going to tell you, the definition is specific. I don't remember it verbatim. But what it is a definition that it's used to set the criteria to get to a phase 2 inspection. In a previous sit down, we talked about phase 1 and phase 2 inspections, and in that one we talked a bit about substantial structural deterioration. I had mentioned that this came up in the house. I was involved in the Surfside working group. Phase 1 and phase 2 inspections were presented there. That made it to our white paper there. The Senate bill was based on primarily our white paper, Surfside Working Group's white paper. In the House, this is where this definition came up. I'm not sure who presented it, but that's where it came up. In order for the House to accept the Senate's bill, they required that this definition be in there. It was the only way they would accept the Senate bill. And so, there were changes made to a hybrid bill was made. I believe the final one was SB 4D, as what occurred after the Senate and the House agreed on their bills. But this definition came up in the House. I think the intent was good there. What the writer or the proposer of it was trying to limit the amount of inspections that in other words, they're trying to protect condos from engineers over-specifying work, etc. But the definition is, I've found problems with it from different angles and different levels. One of the big problems is that the whole intent of the phase 1, the whole milestone inspection, when Surfside Working Group's intent was to just do what Miami-Dade and Broward were doing on a state level. The 40-year inspection, just do it on a state level, but at a tighter time frame. Because the issue was, we had multiple failures prior to 40 years. And so it wasn't that the cycle, wasn't that the inspection process wasn't right. It seemed like the age of the building was too old. In other words, 40 years is a bit old and a bit too far out. So the idea was to keep the inspection process generally the same, but tighten the time frame. But what happened was this language came up, this definition, and it totally altered the whole idea behind what a 40-year milestone inspection is. Because back then, the 40-year inspection, you either have repairs or you don't. You either pass the inspection or you don't. If you pass, you don't need to do any work, and you recertify. And if you had repairs, you had to do repairs. And it could have been small stuff too. Could be a little edge repair, but it's still life safety. If an edge falls off, your railing can fall off and somebody can fly off the balcony. So just because the problem may not appear as substantial, it still needs to be done. But what we have today, and this has happened I've been to properties where the engineers passed the inspection because they don't believe that it's substantial enough, the damage. And then you have literally we've gone out to give proposals on jobs where the board president asked me, he said, Carmelo, why did this engineer pass this inspection? Our building needs repairs. So even the owner is saying that. But the engineer passed the inspection and the building needed a lot of work. Was it substantial, quote unquote? Not necessarily, but it needed work. And so the problem we have today is with the substantial structural deterioration is that I think what a lot of engineers are seeing, there's another definition called substantial structural damage in another code book. And so I think it's very similar definition. And I think a lot of engineers are seeing it similar to where we're going to pass this building until it has damage so bad that it's almost dangerous. Substantial, when you hear the words, and you can ask a layman, what does substantial mean? It's a lot. It's significant.
Significant, that's what comes
it's
to mind.
It's significant, right? So you have a major problem. So instead of making things more safe with the 2 inspection process, we've actually made it less safe because now we have to go to a situation where we're almost dangerous to pass. In other words, you got to fail the phase 1 if you're almost dangerous. It doesn't make any sense. And so that's the whole problem with the definition is just that in itself. The good thing is there is an out for the engineer or architect within the definitions. It basically says you can do whatever, you can call it substantial whatever you want to. It could be a little crack or a little chip. So it's in the definition. I think what's caused what's going on right now is a little bit of confusion because you have things going on all over the place where some engineers are passing buildings with damage and some aren't. And Siobhan, you know, some of our projects we've been on, we did not pass a phase one because it needed repairs. And it, you know, causes some confusion with board members because they don't understand, you know, well, we need work, but why did we not pass the inspection? Well, you need repairs still. And it's it's our call as the structural engineer to say what does that actually mean to us? You know, so the other challenges with it is that when they're not, if you're getting a phase one passed with repairs needed, who's enforcing that now? We had another situation where we passed the phase one because the building needed minor repairs, but it still needed repairs. And we told them that we needed to do a project. What they told us was, no, you passed the inspection, we're good now. They basically told us, no, we don't need to do any repairs because you did the inspection. We reached out to the building official. The building official didn't even understand the situation. He never even got back to me, believe it or not. The building official that I reached out to on one of these municipalities, that we passed the inspection and said, look, they need repairs. In order to do the repairs, they need a permit. In order to get a permit, you need structural documents. You need construction documents. I didn't hear anything back from anybody. So we got a serious situation where what exactly is going on? It doesn't make any sense. So we have nobody really, even the building departments don't understand what's going on. You know, so not to go too far off on this one, but there are a lot of problems with substantial structural deterioration. I think it's caused a lot of confusion. I think the original writer was intending on it helping things, but in my opinion, it's made it worse and very confusing. So I hope that definition is removed at some point and we go back to what the original intent of Surfside Working Group was, and that is to just keep what we had at the 40-year inspection, just tighten the cycle of repair. And so you have more redundancy in the repair process. And that was, you know, what was agreed upon was like probably a better solution. But this other language is just, it's really confusing. So I could add more to it. We go down different tangents, but that's generally, hopefully the listener, you know, and the viewer can, you know, get something from what I've shared. Yeah. So.
Yeah, and I think that on a topic that is so important, you know, we're talking life safety, we're talking, you know, saving and supporting the integrity of the home, of the investment, of, you know, all of it. And so there can be a lot of confusion, but if you have a question, call Carmelo. And of course, we'll see you on the next Coffee with Carmelo. Stay tuned.